There they go, the clown and the two thugs.
You heard it here first on Juice's podcast.
Phoebe, she's already texted me.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, let me make sure I got this thing on Do Not Disturb.
I also need to do that.
I have a setting for podcast recording.
Really?
Yeah, man. Do you know about the D&D modes? You can like set up different D&Ds to let different people through.
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah.
On your phone?
Yeah, I'll show you here. I got like.
That's so cool.
So podcast recording lets nobody through. Then I got one where the only person I want to talk to is my wife, and then the rest of the family, and then.
There you go. Dadgum. How do you turn on the Do Not Disturb? I believe it's
Usually right there.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sweet. All right, I'm just gonna put mine on work since I don't have a. I don't know what the podcast one
Set
is
this
yet.
down. Set this down here.
Yeah, that's fine. Alrighty. So, Mr. Shane Callicutt, thank you for attending the Juice with Jackson, or the Juice with Jackson Bailey podcast show.
Pleasure. My pleasure.
Since I've had this podcast on my mind, you've been on my mind. I've wanted you to have you on. I think you're a very interesting fellow. For those of you, the audience that doesn't know Mr. Shane Callicutt, he's an amazing person. He is the father of my sister-in-law, Phoebe, and he has an amazing family. He's a worship pastor at New Harmony Church, and he's been a great family friend of ours. And when I get the chance, I like to talk about Star Wars and DC stuff when he's around, and occasionally some other stuff. And
yeah, I don't know everything there is to know about those things, but yeah, they're fun little sidetracks.
There's not a lot of people that I know of other than Dad, Star Wars wise, that I can talk to about that kind of stuff. So today I kind of want to go through starting with kind of like a background, childhood, early adulthood, and going into your career, and then like what's your day-to-day life today. What does that look like? And then again, after that, we'll slowly integrate into the questions I had for you, and I believe you have those, and if you want me to send them to you, I can.
No, I got them right here.
Okay, perfect. Let's just start with childhood.
Well, I'm a bicentennial baby, so I was born in 1976.
Yeah.
Grew up in North Mississippi with my sisters. I've got twin sisters, and that was always interesting, you know. But when I was young, I have few memories of this, but my parents divorced, and there's all sorts of things that happened that I don't have, to this day, I don't have, like, super clear answers. I have answers that have been given to me, but sometimes they don't always, like, make sense together, right? But one thing led to another, and my grandparents ended up adopting us, me and my sisters. So basically raised by my mom's parents.
Okay.
And that went well. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of, I don't know, drama or trauma or whatever. And, you know, I'm not saying that there wasn't, but I don't want to overstate the case, man. I mean, we had a happy family.
Yeah.
Okay. Or at least I was happy. I can't speak for my sisters necessarily, but I was happy. the way things were. And, my grandpa, my grandma, obviously we were so young when we were adopted that we kind of ended up just calling them mom and dad,
Yeah.
And so, so I always have to explain this to people when, when I talk about parents that, there's a few people in my life that I've called mom, excuse me, not a few, but two people in my life that I've called mom. And so I have to draw this line of distinction sometimes, like, well, when I say mama, I'm talking about my grandma. When I say mom, I'm talking about my biological mom, who I have a great relationship with. We've never not had a relationship. It's always been a pretty good one. So I call them both,
Yeah.
by the same thing. So that happened, and grew up. I was never a bad kid, in terms of I didn't get into a lot of trouble. I didn't really do a lot of drinking and smoking and all that stuff that was kind of the thing that bad kids did in the 80s and into the 90s, and smoking pot and all that. I mean, my mom calls every drug dope.
Yeah.
So, she always would talk about kids going off and smoking that dope, So it doesn't matter if it was cocaine or whatever, it was dope, and I was into hip hop. So when I would not, I don't know, I was kind of a weird white kid. I really liked hip hop, and, had just, I didn't do country music or anything like that. So in North Mississippi, I was kind of an oddball white kid. But for the time, it may be different now. But so she would hear me play music that had the word, that's dope, that kind of stuff, and she would think, you're listening to that music with drugs, aren't you? No, I'm not. Not at all. But so, anyways, childhood was pretty good. I think one of the things that happened to me that maybe is most impacting is went through some bullying. I was being bullied.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, I mean, still to this day, I feel the effects of it. I'm an adult now. I've kind of learned how to manage that, and I've kind of learned how to identify. That's because I feel this way because things that happened to me as a kid.
Yeah.
So I feel like the Lord has really brought me to a place, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, where when I start feeling, I hate using the word traumatized because it's overused.
Yeah. Agreed.
But I can't think of a better word. I start feeling that traumatization stirring up inside of me, and I can identify pretty quickly. Okay, this is related to that, and I'm able to shelf it. Get past it because it's not real.
Yeah.
Those guys are still not in my life. In fact, I'm friends with some of those guys now on Facebook. And, I mean, we have like this, we have adult friendships now, but, so that's not real anymore. And so it has become it was a real journey for me to identify what is false and just put it in a box and put it away, in my brain. And that didn't happen overnight, I mean, and I still have days where, I didn't box that up very well,
Yeah.
So it really manifests. I'll tell you how it manifests in my adult life now, is I'm not, I'm a little bit, I don't know what the word is. I'm unsure of myself around new people because there's always this thing in my mind of I'm afraid of rejection, and who's not, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that I believe people who say I don't care what people think about me, because you're saying that because you actually care what these people think about you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want them to know that this, how you want to tell them how to think about you or whatever. But so I don't think I completely believe that anybody can totally separate themselves from this need at some level
Yeah.
to be accepted or at least a care of like I want these people to know certain things about me so they will
Yeah.
think certain ways about me. Therefore, you do care what they think about you.
Yeah. I think it's a personally, I would say that over the years, especially in like my college, since beginning college, I've seen myself grow into that kind of. I'm not because there's a lot of people that I don't really care their thoughts like of me, and I honestly think, and I agree with your point, but I think it's almost a level of hardness against, like if you've worried about it so much for so long, you kind of get worn down to it,
Yeah.
and you kind of get
Yeah.
you got to get kind of hardened against it, and then
Sure.
it's you still care, but just way less than you used to.
Well, I mean, so yeah, there are people who exist that I don't give two wooden nickels,
Yeah,
what they think about me because they're not actually in my life.
yeah,
But the people that we invite in, at whatever level that is, whether it's a business relationship or, coworker or, a church member or whatever, all the circles of relationship, you do start that process of caring what they think
yeah,
at some level,
yeah,
So yeah, there are people that exist. There's billions of them.
yeah,
That I don't care what you think about me, until we have to start interacting, and that's the thing. So I don't think I would handle, like I've thought about this 1,000 times. I've never been one to pursue celebrity or try to like or popularity, popularity or anything like that, because not because I'm, uh, I don't think that there would be perks to it or something like that, but my personality, I don't know, man. I just don't know how well I would handle that mental calculus of all these people who know me,
yeah,
and so therefore I must care a little bit. I experience it a little bit with a church of 400 people.
mm-hmm.
Not so there's on average on any given Sunday we could have 400 people in the building. Do I know each of them well? No, but because I'm a pastor and an elder there is this, I don't know, pressure. It's not a bad pressure, but
Yeah,
it's a pressure nonetheless of I care,
yeah,
about what the people who are in this building week in, week out think, even though I don't know each one of them intimately. So in other words, they've entered the sphere, and 400 people that's a lot, man.
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of pressure involved in that, and I welcome it. I mean, I feel like this is the call of God in my life to do what I
mm-hmm.
do. So I'm not really complaining. I'm just stating a fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So childhood, teen years, you weren't doping or anything. You were
no,
into hip
and
hop.
I wasn't really in the popular crowd
Yeah,
either. But I wasn't. I don't know. I felt like I had friends in every strata of
mm-hmm.
high school. I was friends with some nerds. I was friends with some geeks. Friends with some jocks. That kind of thing. So I didn't just land in one spot. I did love basketball though.
Yeah,
Basketball was an obsession, and I wasn't always. I was never the best player. But if I couldn't play, I kept stats.
yeah,
I wanted to be with the team because
yeah,
I love the sport.
yeah,
So we had a very competitive high school. I mean, we were constantly going to state. I mean, I'm not surprised that I didn't make the varsity cut because I was aware of my skill level, but I tried every year.
yeah,
I did. I just wanted to try every time I had a chance to. Always improving. Spent summers, off school in a 130-degree gymnasium, just dripping with sweat, the floor fans blowing on us, but and that was a time where it's different now, but that was a time where it was pretty easy to get the gym unlocked during the summer and just go
yeah,
play basketball, and so did that all the time, and just never quite got the skill level for my high school to make it varsity.
yeah,
It's a sad thing because I feel like after high school and I went to college, and I feel like I actually got better,
yeah,
which was frustrating to me because why couldn't I do this well when it meant something,
yeah,
And it's not that I was having fun, but anyways, that was that's something else that I did in high school. Is really got into basketball. So, but I did go to college. I went to Northeast Mississippi Community College for 3 years, and I was pursuing a teaching degree and to coach basketball. I mean, I wasn't going to teach high school and not have something to do with basketball team, right? So I was taking all the courses that were recommended for coaching basketball, and honestly, I felt like I had a better mind for the game than my body would allow me to do. It just the physicality part of it. But anyway, so I did that in the third year, at a 2-year school, mind you. I got this opportunity, and there's a story behind it. We can go into it later if you want to, but I'll give you the quick version right now.
Okay.
An opportunity was given to me to go to Sterling, Colorado, and serve as, they called it a semester missionary. I find just saying intern is a little easier because there's a lot of explanation that goes like, people, what is that? Well, it's like an intern. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So an internship there to help establish, because in Sterling, there's a community college there, and it's a Northeastern Junior College, and the church that brought me out was wanting to establish a college ministry there, get one started, and so they brought me in to help start that process. I was not going to be the finisher of it, but as an intern, I was helping start the process. And in the years after they brought in people for a few years after that to do that very thing. So it ended up being a thing that our church tried for a while to establish, but or I say our church because I ended up staying there, but it was Emmanuel Baptist Church in Sterling. And in the process, I met Radine, my wife, and it was a it was a little. Controversy might be a strong word, but I'll just say controversy surrounding it because she was a student and I was a teacher. Not like the stuff that hits the news,
Yeah.
But I was brought there to be an intern and lead Bible studies and basically to the students, and they did not anticipate that I was going to meet one of them and marry one of them. So that was, there's a little drama surrounding that, but the Lord worked it out. As it turns out, our senior pastor at our church met his wife the exact same way, so it was kind of like, thank you, Lord, yes. So, anyways, ended up staying in Colorado for 13 years.
Wow.
And Radine was from. I mean, it's the town that Radine was born in, and lived there her whole life. So it was a comfortable thing for her to do that. But when we moved to Missouri, she was ready to go.
Yeah.
And there was nothing there that was just driving us away. But it's funny how God works these things out where you feel like it's time to go, and so you start pursuing that. And we both felt that way, so we started pursuing it. And it only took, I don't know, it took less than 5 months of searching to actually land here. So we've been here now. Actually, I've been here now longer than I lived in Colorado. We've been here over 13 years now.
Yeah.
It'll be 14 this August.
Right on.
And of course, we had both of our daughters in Colorado, but we basically raised them here. So,
when did you start? So your career in worship that started in Colorado.
Yeah.
Around what time?
2001.
2001.
Now, I was on the worship team. Here's the thing. I didn't grow up with this stuff. I grew up in Mississippi with, small country churches and hymnals, and I didn't know. I didn't even know this. I mean, the only place I knew that like guitars and drums happened was in the Pentecostal church. We weren't Pentecostal, so I thought, okay, well, that's just not for us, or whatever. I didn't think much about it, I guess is what I'm saying. So when we moved to Colorado, to this Emmanuel Baptist Church, they had all the drums and guitars and all of it. So it was good. It was a good thing. I loved it, because I like music. I didn't play an instrument at the time. I'd had piano lessons a few times, but I could sing, and so I quickly, I don't know, I think probably within a year or year and a half of getting there, I ended up on the praise team singing, and I'm singing all these new songs that I'd never heard before in my life, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I I have just a side note. There's always this not push, this pull or tension that exists in all the Baptist churches that I've been in since as an adult. There's this tension that exists between folks that want to sing hymns and folks that want to sing praise choruses, and I'm not a hymn guy. I grew up with hymns, and they were dull and boring,
Mm-hmm.
and even though I'm an adult now and I'm more mature and I actually understand the meaning of them
Mm-hmm.
and the history of them, they still bore me.
Yeah.
Musically, I should say, musically,
Yeah.
they bore me. So I've kind of in my ministry tried to. We don't change the words because the words are what's important, the most important about them, but definitely change the musicality of them. Rearrange the music on it so it fits a band better, like with drums and the whole setup.
Mm.
So that's been something that I do because I actually like hymns, but I just don't enjoy playing them from a hymn book.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but for a while I didn't want to sing any of them because I was so tired of them as a coming from where I came from, and not that they were done poorly, but they were just done, I don't know, slow. Um, and I don't know. I don't want to say any more about that because I'm afraid I might end up offending somebody. 'Cause I don't have any beef with the people who led the music when I
Yeah.
was growing up, but it just never was appealing to me. So, but anyway, 2001, I ended up um, our worship pastor left, and he was very well liked, and I ended up taking the position on an interim basis. I had filled in the past. Again, something that I had no experience with, right? But just kind of watched the guys who were doing it, and I don't, yeah, I'll just say it. I mimicked what they did, okay, to a certain degree. It made it my own, of course, but and after I had subbed in a few times, and we come to this point of we need somebody to fill in, until we can find a new guy. The pastor at the time approached me and asked me if I would do that, and so what ended up was supposed to be an part time interim situation. I just ended up being the guy
Yeah.
eventually. And we even changed senior pastors from that time to around 2005, and he kept me on. So he thought that things were going well. So it was part time though. I mean, the rest of the time I'm working in the IT world
Mm-hmm.
with computers and networks, and I did a little construction, which I would advise every young man to get in a construction trade of some kind right out of high school or right out of college. Don't worry about the career degree thing yet. Go get some practical experience
Mm-hmm.
because I spent 2.5 years on a construction crew. 2.5, maybe it was just 2. But regardless, I spent some time on a construction crew early, and it's benefited me,
Yeah.
ever since. And there's just things that you learn how to do that you don't have to pay someone else to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very very handy. But anyways, so for 10 years until 2010 when we moved here to Missouri, it was part time worship pastor and full time in the IT world.
Right on.
Yeah.
And so that period where you guys were looking to move on from Colorado, was it just like a job posting that you found in the middle of Missouri, or what did that look like?
Um, Depends on who you ask. Radine remembers it differently than I do. But bottom line is the process that we had was Radine would help me in this. So I posted a resume on I think it's called Church Staffing or churchjobs.net or .com or something. I haven't been there in a very long time. And not even sure if it still exists, honestly. But I did that and, uploaded a video of that I recorded from our church service, just me leading so people can kind of see what I do. And then Radine would, because she stayed at home with our girls, she would, when she wasn't doing anything, just kind of look through the openings on different websites, and a lot from the one where I posted my resume.
Mm-hmm.
She would look through the openings and just kind of present, a handful of them to me when I'd get home, and go look at them. And it's 2010, 2009, 2010 when I'm doing this, and man, churches need to get their website game going better than than even today. I mean, it's better than it used to be. But when you're searching, and it's unfortunate because I know that the churches that are posting openings, they're going to these websites, and the website gives them a template to fill in information, so they can't always include everything that they want to include. So you say, well, that sounds interesting. Let's go look at their website. And you go look at their website because this is the only way you can find out anything about them other than what they've posted without calling or emailing or whatever. And I'm trying to eliminate things, the for sure no-goes immediately, so I'm not wasting time. And the websites are just terrible. and I being a guy who builds websites for a living at that time, I was just shaking my head, man. It's like, guys, I could just like call you and do this all and be your webmaster, and you could pay me, and I don't know. It was, so I had all these other ideas. Like, maybe I should just build websites for a living. I'm glad I didn't do that. That kind of fell. I mean, websites are still a thing, but that's like right around when the first iPhone came out and everything was going to apps. But regardless, you go to their website, you finally find their beliefs and whatever, and so you just start weeding them out. And Radine claims that we actually saw New Harmony's website and looked at it, and I don't remember that at all. She said that it was a no-go.
Really?
Yeah, or something. She like I said, she remembers it a little different. So I might not even be saying this accurately according to her memory. But she said, "Yeah, we saw this one, and you turned your nose up at it." I was like, "Oh, really? Okay." So but like I said, I don't remember that. So in May or April of 2010, I get a call from Pastor David, who's the pastor at New Harmony at the time, and I'm at work. It happens to be a super slow day.
Oh, wow.
And so I have lots of freedom at this place. Like if I get a phone call, they just say, just take it. And, as long as you're not neglecting, anything else.
Yeah.
So we talked for like, I don't know, felt like 30, 40 minutes. And of course I clocked out so I could do this because I wasn't going to, but it was, we talked for 34 or 40 minutes on the phone, and they ended up doing a Skype interview with him, and a few Skype calls actually. And they brought us out for a preview weekend in June of that year. And then I accepted the position. It was, we moved here in August. So it's actually one of the most difficult things, not the moving itself, but I loved my church in Colorado. I actually didn't want to leave. In terms of, if they had said we'll hire you full time, I would have stayed.
Yeah.
But one of the things that contributed to this was Radian was staying home with the girls. We're living in Colorado, right? It's more expensive. It's probably even far worse now. But and so that required me to have my regular job, the worship job, which was part time, and 2 other side hustles along with it. And I was just dying physically, wore out, man. I mean, I didn't have energy to do much at all apart from what I had to do. And so that's one of the things that was motivating me. It was not the primary thing, but it was a thing that was motivating me. And I went to our church, the elders at our church, and I said, "This is where I'm at. I would much rather do this here."
Yeah.
You know. But and they came back with basically an offer that just flipped it. It didn't change anything in terms of how much work, how like the side jobs and all the stuff. It just flipped it so that I would still need to have a part-time job plus the 2 hustles that I was doing. And I just looked at my senior pastor, and he and I are still good friends to this day. I said, "This is not any different than what I'm doing now. You know, I'm wore out.
Yeah.
I'm wearing myself out. And my heart is to be in here full time and pour all of my energy into this, not give it 75% and have to split the rest of it up between 3 other things."
Yeah.
So, yeah, we landed here. And
Awesome.
but it was sad. I mean, I love, to this, I still have great love feelings toward Emmanuel Baptist Church in Sterling, but it's just not, it just wasn't in the cards, man.
Yeah.
So,
And then almost 14 years here, and how has your experience been in Missouri?
it's been great. I mean, it's more similar to how I grew up in Mississippi. Still not quite as southern,
Yeah.
but it's more southern than Colorado.
Yeah.
You know. So we've had just I mean, this has been my favorite place to live. In terms of what the Lord has done in our life.
Yeah.
In our lives. Now, I still love the beach, and I would love to live closer to the beach, but I would not trade that. If I got an offer to move somewhere at the beach, but I somehow would know that the Lord wouldn't be moving the way that He moves here, I wouldn't go.
Yeah.
You know. So to me, it's not even geography, man. It's, am I living in the place where God uses me the best?
Yeah.
And or the most or whatever. And so far, this has continued to be a really good place for my family to live and be used.
Yeah.
So,
is it okay for me to ask how much longer you intend to?
I had this conversation just not long ago with somebody. I said, I'm content to stay anywhere as long as I'm growing.
Yeah.
So as long as the growth is there, I'm good.
Yeah.
I mean, and I might be oversimplifying things a little bit, because you start talking to some pastors about, how long are you going to be here? Well, they'll give you this well, just whenever God tells me, as long as God will have me here.
Yeah.
If I could be honest, and I'm not thinking of any one pastor in particular, because literally hundreds of pastors in our community would say something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not one of them. I'm a longevity guy, and I've been here for 13 years. So you could throw me into, I'm into the longevity game.
Yeah.
But I just don't have, I get that, like, God uses people for different seasons in different ways. That's fine. So this is why I'm not being judgmental against that statement. But for me, it does not work. Okay. I think the way the Lord has wired me is to really implant myself, get to know the community, and work for whatever change needs to happen, you know. And I'm a worship pastor, and I'm not minimizing that position at all when I say this. So, but I'm not the most, I guess, well positioned person to like change a church culture. That's usually the senior pastor who does that.
Yeah.
But when you're 13 years anywhere, you have an impact on it. Somebody said to me once that, you know, whether it's actually true or not, your worship guy and your senior pastor are the face of your church.
Yeah.
You know, so you at least on the surface have the most the I guess the widest impact because you're the face that people associate with this given church. I was like, oh crap. I don't want that, you know. But that was a long time ago when that was said to me. But I'm fine with it as long as God continues to use it.
Yeah.
You know. So my clock, if there is a clock on how much longer I'll be here, isn't measured in days and weeks and months and years. It's measured in usefulness.
Yeah.
So as long as God continues to use me here, I'm content to stay.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Awesome. That was a very beautiful, well put together bio. And
it's off the cuff, man. Because I did zero prep for this, except for read your text. You said to me.
It's all right. I thought it was great.
I will say this, and this is not, I guess you can call it a plug or whatever, but I actually wrote a book about my testimony.
Really?
Yeah, I published it. You were here when I did it, man.
Yeah.
But you were also, you know, still in high school, so probably not inclined
fair.
to be a reader.
Fair.
But I self-published through Amazon in 2016 a book called Recreated, and it has a lot. It's not like a linear telling of my testimony, but it just zooms in on several aspects of my testimony and just, you know, talks about them biblically. And I mean, I address the bullying, you know, in that book.
Yeah.
And forgiveness and being adopted and all sorts of things. So I have, because I did that, I mean, lots of this stuff is just implanted in my brain.
Yeah.
When you write a book about your testimony, you tend to hang on to it.
Yeah.
So it's easy to talk about.
Right on. And so day to day now, since you're here, you have 100% into New Harmony, worship pastor. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff. But I would say you still enjoy the other stuff if that makes sense. But what does your day to day look like now since the change?
Well, I mean, I have office commitments, you know, that I fulfill every month. We count, if you're a minister, you count Sunday as a work day.
Yeah.
Okay. So my work week will be Sunday to Thursday. Friday and Saturday are my off days.
Okay.
And, you know, here's the thing about what ministers, or at least the ministers I know, do, is that there's a lot of work that can be done from anywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and so you don't have to sit in an office at a desk and do it, but you got to sit somewhere and do it.
Yeah.
So it's a thing where I can begin. I usually begin my day the moment I leave the house, and I go get coffee, and this is like around 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. But when I get coffee, I start working. I mean, and when I'm talking about working, I'm usually talking about I'm studying, I'm preparing for something. And you know, just a small piece of that is, you know, thinking about the music that we're going to sing, but at any church, I mean, you get hired to be, you know, a pastor of students or a worship pastor or whatever, but you got other hats that you wear as well.
Yeah.
And in my case, I'm also an elder at the church, and that is something that it's kind of its own thing. So I have responsibilities that go beyond just the worship ministry. I also recently in the last few years I've had a lot more help in this area of the IT at the church, the computers, the networks, and all that. So, and that's not something that requires constant attention, but it's always something that, is something usually goes wrong, or whatever.
Yeah, where's Shane?
Yeah, where's Shane? Now I can say, where's Dan?
Right on, sweet.
So Mr. Dan Schrock helps me a lot. So the buck does not necessarily stop at my desk with all things IT anymore. Although I would say that I have oversight of those things.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'll spend Mondays are our staff meeting days, and we kind of get together and as a staff and talk about the upcoming week, and maybe a little bit about what happened on Sunday the day before.
Yeah.
And so we plan, but we also study together
Right on
those mornings, and pray for everybody. Because we're always getting prayer requests coming in, so we're constantly, when we sit down, we spend I'd say the largest chunk of our time in prayer and study together. And then we do housekeeping stuff with calendaring and what needs to happen in the building this week, because things are always breaking. Like right now we've got furnaces that are out.
Yeah.
So that's something that needs to be taken care of, hopefully by tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So we don't freeze while we're having church. But so that's what a day looks like. I spend a lot of time just studying, preparing for teachings, writing. One of the things that I've discovered since being in Salem at New Harmony is I love producing content. I like writing. I enjoy podcasting. I enjoy creating video content. Now, it's not always easy when you're the sole creator of those things. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it does.
So I don't always get to do everything that I would like to do. But one of the neat things that's happened is it happened just this past, just the beginning of this month, is we brought on a guy part-time, John Lanier is his name, and he's helping us. He's going to be a discipleship pastor, and he actually is into this stuff too. So
right on.
Yeah, so I've got a guy on staff with me that actually knows a little bit about doing the stuff, the podcasting, the recording, because he does that for his regular job, and does a lot of video content creation, things like that, but not for himself, but for the people that he works for. And so we're able to kind of leverage some of that skill now. Between him and I, we have actually we restarted a podcast that I started a couple of years ago, where we take a deeper look at what gets preached on Sundays. So we'll record that on like the Monday after. And so we just restarted that. It's going to be great. And he and I have a similar passion for those kinds of things. But at a deeper level, we both have a really deep passion for discipleship, biblical literacy amongst our people, and making sure that we're covering our bases as pastors and elders in the church at helping people get better at that thing. So.
Awesome. Well, I guess we can get into the question portion. And I'm sorry I'm looking at my phone a lot because apparently my notes are not my computer. But
you're fine. I didn't even notice you were doing that.
Yeah. Well, I try to be conscious about that kind of stuff. Full attention to my guest. But I am not sure why it's not on my computer. So I'm just going to shut my computer. So originally when I had reached out to you, I said, can you come on? Let's get a date. We got a date. And then my initial intention was to get the stuff to you as soon as possible. And I said within the week. Well, that did not happen. and it took me.
You sent this to me on Tuesday.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
And I prayed about it, and I wanted it to be. I want to be better with the questions I bring up, the content I want to touch on, the conversations I'd like to have, because the main reason I have this, main reason I have the podcast is bring people on that I find interested in, wanting to learn things, wanting to learn more things from those people that I have interest in, and so. I kind of thought about that and prayed about that, and like anytime I would sit down and think about it, I would just wander off or something, and then the things that I've brought up for you kind of were just on a whim, and not necessarily on a whim. They just kind of came out of nowhere.
Sure.
Like I'd be driving to class or something, and then that question would pop up, and I'd be like, that's something I would want to know from Shane. I think that you would have pretty good knowledge of. And so that's kind of where I've gotten these, and I'm sure after this there will be questions that I wish I would have asked you, and we'll save for another date for another podcast episode.
And I'm cool with free flow, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you think of something on the fly, I don't care.
Yeah.
We'll take a stab at it.
Awesome. So my first question for you was, how has worship changed in the time you've been a worship pastor? So since you began, you were an intern.
Yeah.
And then till now.
Well, there's a lot of change that's happened. I'm trying to think of a way to nutshell this so that it doesn't take 20 minutes. But let's just put it this way. When I think about that question, my mind automatically goes to content of the songs.
Yeah.
And because the instrumentation really hasn't changed much. I mean, the way we play music kind of flows along with the broader like music genre culture that's happening. You know, like I honestly don't know what to compare modern worship music stylistically with.
Yeah. You can't really
because it's
relate
kind of
it to anything.
It's its own animal.
Yeah.
It used to be more copycatish of what was happening on the top 40. And I think in the CCM, the contemporary Christian music world, a little bit of that is still happening. But I'll be honest with you, man, I don't listen to the radio anymore.
Yeah.
I don't listen to CCM anymore. And when I say CCM, I draw a line of distinction between that and worship music.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens frequently, and I'm never gonna. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just a thing that, I contend with. Is people will text me with songs and say, "Hey, this would be a cool song to do in church," you know. And I either already know the song and it's an automatic no, not because I don't like it or anything, but there is a difference between a CCM song, that, I don't know, I can't even think of an artist right now. I'm going to say an artist, and I'm automatically going to date myself because it was really the last time I was. So Rebecca St. James, okay?
Yeah.
She hasn't really probably produced music since the late 2000s, okay? But she's the one that popped into my head, so I'm going to run with it. As I recall, I would not use her music in a worship service. It's not bad music. Yeah. It's even positive and encouraging music, like K-Love says. Yeah. But it's godly music. But it is not a song of praise to our God. Yeah. It's more subjective to her personal story. Yeah. Okay. Matthew West. Okay, Matthew West is an artist. I like Matthew West. Okay. Yes. He's probably one of the few contemporary CCM guys that I would take a minute to listen to one of his songs. He does a good job, but very few of his songs I would consider worship songs. Why? Because again, Matthew West is telling a story with his music that is personally rooted in his own life's experience, and not everybody can grab onto that.
Yeah.
Okay. The music that we sing together in worship has got to be something that everybody can grab onto. Must, or else you're leaving people out of the experience.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about style, I'm talking about content. So the words, the music, the lyrics of a song have to be pointing everybody in the congregation in the same direction, and they can all get on that bus.
Yeah.
Okay. So so people will send me a song. It might be a great song, man. And I'm just making something up, but it's about the time that your mom died and how the Lord brought you through it.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, everybody has a mom that dies eventually, but not everybody's mom has died,
Yeah.
you know? So, but we all are sinners, and we all are in need of a savior, and we
Yeah.
all are, for those of us who have believed, we all have a similar story of redemption that's going on. So we take these themes of redemption and healing and God's glory, and we can all relate to that. So if a song doesn't like directly relate to those, it's out.
Yeah.
Okay, in my opinion. Now, not everybody does that. It's fine. We don't all have to be the same. But if you want if you expect me to lead worship for an event or in a church or whatever, I'm not going to do those songs because we need to bring everybody along.
Yeah.
The other thing, so all that to say this, the content has changed toward I think probably since I began this and when I say the content, of course, I'm talking about modern songs that are being written. The hymns have not changed. The content has changed from something that's, I would say, simple to something that's a little more complex in its meaning. In the late 90s, before I actually became a worship pastor, but I had moved to Colorado and we sang this in church. There's this song, I Can Sing of Your Love Forever. Okay. Over the mountains and the seas, your river runs with love for me. That song. And see, I still remember it. We sang it so much.
Yeah.
And it's a great song. It's a great sentiment, but it's not, it just doesn't run very deep, because the truth is you don't.
Yeah.
The truth is you're not actually doing these things, and it's okay to sing about things that we hope for, like we would love to do, X, Y, or Z. It's okay to do that. The psalmist does that, but it's also one of those songs that used to be kind of pejoratively called 7-Eleven songs, so it's got 7 words and you sing it 11 times through. That song fit into that category. And so some of the pushback that was happening against praise courses and contemporary worship was rooted in that. That has changed. Now, to say that it has changed all the way like we're writing hymns again, no, it is not. Okay, there are some modern hymn writers that, like the Gettys, who wrote In Christ Alone and several other songs. I would say they've kind of moved into the more hymn writing, and there is a difference in hymns and praise and songs of praise. Okay, but I can't think of a way to explain that quickly, so I'm just going to keep going. But the Bible makes that distinction. It says we speak to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. So the psalms are already written for us. The hymns are songs that we write, but the spiritual songs are also songs that we do. But there's a difference between those two. So we're talking about in the category of spiritual songs, okay, and so they've gotten meatier, okay. They're a little more complex these days because I think in part that was from the pushback that was being received. That let's not just sing about how we feel about God, how we feel. I mean, there's times to do that. But let's write music that's objectively true about God as well. Because our feelings about God are not always the same. I mean, I say that with loads of grace. Okay, like I can be angry at God. I mean the reality. I mean,
Yeah.
I love God, but I can also be angry with Him and not happy with what He's doing in my life. So I mean, my feelings about God shift, and although I would say that at the bottom line, I trust Him. But just because I trust Him and I'm going to follow Him doesn't mean that I'm always happy with what He's doing.
Yeah.
And so to sing about how we feel about Him is not nearly as concrete as let's just sing about who He is and what He's done. So there's been a much more in the last 20 plus years of the music that's written has dove deeper into that pool. It's kept the pool. It's kept the songs about our feelings toward God, but even those have grown. Okay, they're a little more complex. They're a little more, I don't know. They're just better. So, anyways, that's the biggest things I've seen change. In terms of, I mean, what hasn't changed though is well, no, I don't want to go there because I think there is a little bit of change in what we used to call the worship war.
Yeah.
Where it was hymns versus praise choruses. I think that argument still exists, but it is far smaller now than it used to be. So,
So going into, times have changed. Worship, I think, has changed in a way with content, but also with ways of expressing worship and praise.
mm-hmm.
So, what are your thoughts on different genres of worship? So, like, there's rap worship.
Sure.
There's rock worship, like hard rock worship. What are your thoughts on expanding upon, like, the normal contemporary praise and worship?
I want to be careful because somebody's personal private worship is none of my business.
Yeah.
Unless it's violating scripture at some level. If I learn that in your private worship you are sacrificing chickens, we need to have a talk.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you're writing rap music in your private worship, I mean, who am I to say that's wrong? I mean, it's not. As long as it's biblical, glorifying to God, edifying to yourself, building your relationship with the Lord. I don't have any desire to speak to that.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about the gathered worship of of believers, and I'm not saying that there isn't a place where hip hop wouldn't work. Okay, it wouldn't work in Dent County.
Yeah.
Okay, here in the middle of Missouri. So I have to leave room in my category where there's probably a place where this would work.
Yeah.
Okay. But there is a principle of gathered worship that is universal in that it's gathered. It's not spectator. It's a shared experience. It's something we all do together.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is actually going to narrow the playing field a little bit about, so what are the best forms, the best styles that we would use in any given place. And, so I would say to rap or to, harder rock or whatever, those styles tend to breed spectators. Okay. And I would not personally, I mean, even for me, like if I walked into a church and they're worshiping with hip hop, that style, or with metal or whatever, I'm probably not participating. But I can enjoy the experience. Okay, like, oh, they're really good at this. But see, I'm already, that's a loss because I'm not focusing on. I've become a spectator.
Yeah.
Okay. And if worship's supposed to be a shared event, a participation event, then the leaders in any church of the worship should use a style and a genre that will get the most participation.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer to the question is I can't eliminate it, but I can narrow the field to like say, okay, well, whatever genre we choose to use, it's got to be easy to participate with. Okay.
Yeah.
And I could see, like if you if you work at it long enough and you introduce enough of, like, you could get a church full of people who can rap along with rap worship.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's just not something that I've seen, so therefore it's hard for me to really imagine that it's useful or not useful. Well, it wouldn't be useful for me, but and what I mean by this, it just wouldn't accomplish the intended purpose. Okay, of glorifying God, worshiping together, and yeah. I guess that's my answer.
I got you. I think it's.
What do you think?
So, I had thought about it that way in spectators and participation. I haven't thought about it that way, and for me, I've grown away from it. My early, more so the Christian rap, and I didn't really dip into the Christian rock side of things, but I've grown away from it since my early walk, early believer, and I would still say I'm an early believer, or a young believer per se. But I think it's more so it can be a tool of worship. It can be a form of worship. And I also agree with, your private worship. If it's biblical, edifying yourself, that's great. And I can't say anything I can't judge you in any way. That's your worship. But I think that it is, I would say it's a tool more so for outreach than it is. It's still worship, but I think it's an outreach in a way.
So can I jump in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you answer then and I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, so how do you answer then the command to come out from among them and be separate if what you're doing sounds just like what they're doing?
I guess the argument that it is the content of what it is.
That's fair.
And I think that's deep. And I haven't thought about that either. But I think the content is the difference.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that. I really do.
And because same beat, same style, different content, and the content we're talking about is night and day difference. It is glorifying God, and maybe even throwing in like a rapper's personal experience, and what I've come from and what the Lord redeemed me from.
Yeah.
And then you go to the other side of the spectrum, and it's the complete opposite, content-wise. And so I guess that is sort of that's kind of the outlier or the difference between the two.
Mm-hmm. For me, I have had to just basically ditch the hip hop rap genre in my life. The Christian stuff, even the Christian stuff, because, and I think this is an overlooked aspect of this whole discussion for many people. Music is emotional.
Yeah.
Okay. And which is honestly one reason some denominations don't use instruments. They don't want things to get too based in emotion. All right. There's other things that they would say too, but that's one of them. Because music, I mean, that's how come when you watch a movie, there's a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Okay, it's much more of an emotional experience when there's an accompanied track with it. Okay, have you ever tried to watch? I mean, I'm sure you've seen it on YouTube. You know, they'll play a scene from a show, like okay, this is not music, but it's one that pops into my head. Watching an episode of Friends without the laugh track.
Yeah. You probably wouldn't laugh as much.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not the same. And watching, the dialogue, the action sequence from a movie, but minus the track that's supposed to go with it, the music, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
So music stirs us emotionally, but my argument against the people who would say so we shouldn't use instruments is, well, God knows this, and He tells us to use instruments in the Psalms. Psalm 150 lists a lot of instruments. God says, use these when you worship me. So I think that God knows this, and He wants us to use that power, if I could call it a power.
Yeah.
He wants us to use the power of music in a way that moves us toward Him, okay? Moves our emotions toward Him, so I see nothing wrong with that. So, but we have to recognize the emotional impact of just music itself. And so for me, I had to stop. I really tried to, I don't know, I'd say even up until 10 or 15 years ago, enjoy the Christian rap genre. It wasn't as good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot better now than it used to be. But I liked rap music. I liked hip hop. I grew up with that stuff.
Yeah.
I cannot listen to that anymore, by the way. But I can't listen to the Christian stuff either, because you know why? Those beats stirred up the old emotions. I mean, it stirred up the wannabe thug in me. And I found that counterproductive to my spiritual life. So even with good content, I had to quit.
Yeah.
Because that's not the first thing that was hitting me. What was hitting me was the emotions that beat and those tracks would stir up in me.
Yeah.
Because rap music is aggressive.
It is.
In all forms. I mean, unless you listen to some early Fresh Prince of Bel-Air stuff, where he's like singing about parents don't understand and all that stuff. Most rap music has an aggressive thing to it, and so you have to and it's built into the beat.
Yeah.
Okay, it's built into the instrumentation, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Okay, because the soundtrack for Saving Private Ryan or Star Wars or whatever has aggressive moments because they're trying to build an emotion toward
that moment.
So that's fine. But I can't help it. For me, I had to quit.
Yeah.
Because it was just counterproductive to what I think the Lord's trying to grow in me.
Yeah.
Is to have all those aggressive emotions stirred back up again.
Yeah.
Ideally, Christian rap should make me want to be more like Jesus, but it was actually making me angry.
Yeah.
So I had to quit.
And that was perfect because this is going straight into the next question. As Christians, as believers, as followers of Jesus, there has, at least for me, there's always been a divide in between praise and worship music and then your secular music, your actual hip hop, your actual rock and roll, your actual country. And like you were saying earlier, those are emotional. Music is emotional. And earlier on in my walk, it was just Christian music. And I saw other people that didn't listen to just praise and worship and Christian rap and Christian rock as otherwise. And that was something I had to get over.
Right.
Not judging someone on what they listen to. Mm-hmm. And I've grown away from that. I feel like I've kind of, the Christian rap and stuff, I've grown away from that, not because I dislike it, But I would say I just kind of overdid it. I listened to it so much, I kind of grew out of it. And so now I really do enjoy, like, I enjoy listening to, like, old school hip hop especially when I work out.
Yeah.
Wu-Tang, Snoop Dogg, Nas, Biggie, all those guys.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah.
Love that culture. Love that time. And it's in.
I grew up in it. It's not always cracked up to be.
I enjoy it, and I would say that through the last few years, I've grown in my repertoire of genres that I've touched in.
Sure.
But when this question came up in my mind, I was like, I kind of don't want to ask because I'm scared of the answer. And so the question is, I'm a believer. Is it wrong to listen to these things? And
so, thank you for being brave. Let me tell you what is wrong: to deny the power of it.
Yeah.
Okay. You deny the power of what you put into your mind through music, through poetry, through books, through TV, through whatever. You're an idiot. Okay. So let's get that right first.
Yeah.
Don't be in denial about what this can do to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Then it comes down to your capacity to filter. And now, I'm going to cut that one off at its knees in a second, okay? But I want to say this because this is something that's legitimate, okay? I'm not, well, let me say that again. I'm not actually going to cut it off at its knees, but some people will say this to try to cut it off at its knees, okay?
Yeah.
So your capacity to filter is important, okay? Now, your filter, I don't care how good you are at it, it is not perfect. It is not airtight, watertight, anything tight, okay? You can overwhelm it and in doing so, overwhelm yourself, okay? You start to actually be affected by what you're listening, watching, reading, okay? But there is a clear command in Scripture, Philippians. I'll pull it up here. That's why I have my computer out in case I need to do this. Philippians, I think 4:8. So finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Okay. Then you get into Romans chapter 8, where it talks about, set our minds on the things of the Spirit, not on the things of the flesh. Romans chapter 12, where it says that we're supposed to be renewing our minds, so that we might know the good and perfect and acceptable will of God. And there's lots of other places we can go, but I'll just use those three. What you put in is important.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I don't think that Paul, in Philippians 4:8 is saying that this must be 100% of your input. Okay. I mean, it should be a large portion of it, right? A very large portion of it. But it's practically impossible for it to be 100%. Okay. I mean, even if you committed yourself to, I'm not listening to secular music anymore, you're still getting input from other places that you're filtering. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not going to achieve 100% purity in this area. Okay. Even if you wanted to. So then you come down to where I think the reality of life is that you're always going to make choices about the content that you're going to make practical choices about content. Okay. I guess maybe that's not the right way to say it. I'll just run with it anyways. What I mean by that is, like, there's just some things in life that it's easier to filter than to try to get rid of entirely. Okay. because we live in the world. The world is broken.
Yeah.
We're always going to have things to filter. So, like Radine and I, we have a filter for what we view. Okay, so we will not watch movies that have nudity or excessive vulgarity. Okay, and so what we do is we go to IMDb and look at the parent guide, and it tells us whether we can watch this or not. Like, it may not have any nudity in it,
Yeah.
but it has 80 f bombs, because sometimes they'll tell you the number of times the f word comes up in a movie. We're like, well, we're not watching that. It's just, I mean, it's not that word. We don't say that word in our casual conversation, obviously, or or when we're angry. But it's one of those things where we accept the reality of living in the world as it is, and people talk this way. So I mean, we're not offended necessarily by hearing that word, because especially if it comes from someone who doesn't know Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. But movies are a choice. So we choose, like, we don't have to listen to this stuff when with the movies that we watch. So we're going to choose not to. Now, this is a rabbit hole, like, because you're going to run into people who will try to, like, catch you in a logical thing of like, well, if you're going to do that, then why don't you do this, and why don't you do that, and so the logic kind of gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's why I said practical earlier. Okay, there's a practical level of I guess we live in a broken world, so I'm not going to let every time I hear, the F word or whatever, be something that just, oh, I can't believe they said that.
Yeah.
No, I believe it because they're lost. I believe it because it's just like, this is, unless you know Jesus, this is the way you talk.
Yeah.
And you run into people who maybe to varying degrees don't talk that way as much, and that depends on, like, the way you were brought up, your the environment that you work in, whatever. Okay, so we're not all as sinful as we could be because of different factors, but we're still sinners. So back to your question. I don't have a problem with believers who listen to secular music. I listen to some secular music. All right. It's not my meat and potatoes of my music game.
Yeah.
But there's music that I enjoy, and so I'll go listen to it occasionally. I do think that there is some music that is just always out of bounds, though.
Yeah.
Some of the gangster rap that I listened to growing up, I will never listen to that again. I mean, it's explicit.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be my thing. As much as I did enjoy Snoop Dogg and Dre and, Tupac and Biggie Smalls and all those guys who, were big in the early, mid, and late 90s for hip hop, I just can't listen to them anymore. And you know what? When they were on the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, it was kind of exciting. Okay. Yeah. It's the only Super Bowl show that I actually remember kind of halfway enjoying for a very long time.
Yeah.
But even while they were doing it, I was like, oh man, I feel bad about how much I'm enjoying this music right now because of what it's saying.
Yeah.
So I think there are lines that we have to draw, because they're. And I feel I probably shouldn't even mention any of the lyrics that happen, but you can use your imagination.
Yeah.
Those things have no place in the minds of a believer. But let me take a moment, and this is where people are going to turn me off. Okay. This is one reason that I think country music is the most hypocritical genre in existence. Okay. You look at hip hop, you look at heavy metal, you look at, like, just your regular top 40 rock and roll stuff. It's not pretending to be something that it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Gangsters aren't, like, gangster rap guys aren't rapping about having sex with their girlfriend and whatever, about their sexual escapades in one song, and then rapping about going to church in the next one. Okay, they're not doing that. They're honest about who they are. And I'm not accusing every country musician of this, okay? But the genre, it's not hard to find an album of put out by some country artist who sings about beer and getting and drinking and sexual. It's not always as explicit, okay, as say hip hop, okay, or rap. But you read between the lines. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about sex and alcohol, but then you're going to find a hymn, on their album somewhere. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. That is hypocritical. Okay, I can say this for the rap artist who's being just a wretch on every track of his album. He's not a hypocrite.
Yeah.
But that country artist is a hypocrite. Because, and I'm careful with who I call hypocrite, because a lot of times we think about hypocritical as, you just don't practice what you preach. That's not hypocritical. That's being human. Okay, nobody's perfect. I don't practice with 100% perfection what I preach. Nobody does. I mean, I can't even live up to my own standards I set for myself. Okay, we're all failures in that regard. But to be a hypocrite is to fail but pretend you're not.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean that's what the Pharisees were doing in the Bible. That's what Jesus was so critical with them about. They were failing, but they were like, "We're not failing." What are you talking about, failure? We're not failing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. So that's hypocrites where we get the word actor. It is the word for actor in ancient Greek. So you're pretending to be something you're not. And so I can get along with people not practicing what they preach with perfection. I can get along with people who fail and, admit it.
Yeah.
But to profess one thing and then live in a way that is contrary, but then say that there's nothing wrong here, that's hypocritical.
Yeah.
So anyways, my country music diatribe is over. So that's one genre of music you will never hear me listen to in my casual time. But it's not even really because of that. I didn't come to that conclusion until later in life. I just didn't like it growing up because most of the people that were listening to it were racist bigots, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
So.
Man. That was good. So we've talked about what has worship looked like through the years, how it's changed content-wise, even with musicians and even with technology. Where do you see worship going in the future?
Well, I mean, in some regard, worship is not going to change because we're going to continue doing the thing that we've done for 2,000 years as a church. We're going to sing, okay. But I hate predicting the future because I'm not very good at it. But in my mind, I see a breakdown. Right now, let me say this before I say that. Right now, the church is heavily influenced by a handful of worship musicians, worship writers, musicians from and writers from Bethel and from Elevation Church. From those are the two big players, honestly. I mean, and there's some other groups that have Maverick City, but they're an offshoot of these two. Okay, because you'll see a lot of crossover. In fact, if you look at copyright stuff, their music is often copyrighted either along with Bethel or Elevation.
Yeah.
Okay, So there's a lot of bleed over between those. But Maverick is its own thing, but they come underneath the umbrella of these two in a lot of ways, publishing wise. Hillsong seems to be kind of their star seems to be fading a little bit in terms of like popularity and that's not in any small. I mean, completely related, I think, to a lot of the controversy that goes on with has happened in their church with their leadership. I think because of some of the unorthodox and strange things that have happened with Bethel, that you're going to see their star fade eventually. I mean, this happens eventually to everybody, okay?
Yeah.
But there's going to be enough pushback against how open they are to just. I want to be careful because there are people all over the map on this, and I've tried to remain comfortably not neutral but diplomatic about it. I don't agree with a lot of things that have come out of Bethel in the last few years. There's books that have been written by their people that get endorsed by other. And this has nothing to do with their music necessarily, okay?
Yeah.
But just things outside of their music ministry, where there's books that get written that get endorsed by their pastors, and they're that are just off the wall, like Physics of Heaven, just an off the wall crazy book. That's not. I mean, there are lies in that book. Okay?
Yeah.
But they get endorsed by the staff. Things like that. I mean, if you want to know more about that, Mike Winger did an excellent review of that book and just said this is why. He said, I'm calling Bethel to repent over this. Okay. And after watching that video and kind of learning as much as I could, I basically do the same thing. They need to repent over that book and over their support for it. But because of that, I don't care how good of music they're writing, because I think they write good music. Their music is going to end up being an unfortunate casualty of everything else that's happening at that church.
Yeah.
Because I just think they're eventually. I mean, even within the charismatic community, there's pushback against Bethel now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we're going to see their star kind of start to fade a little bit. I don't know who's going to rise up and take their place necessarily. I don't think anybody has to.
Yeah.
Because honestly, man, there's a lot of good worship musicians out there who are writing good music. They just don't have the same platform.
Yeah.
But that's an issue that. The issue of platform is something that kind of, I don't know, it's sticky to me. I'm not against the mega church. Large churches don't bother me one bit, but I'm also very, I guess, aware of the problems that can come with large churches.
Mm-hmm.
If there's not a concerted effort in any large church, and when I say large church, let's just call it 500 plus, okay? There's different definitions. That's not a mega church, by the way. But I think like we're starting to feel this tension at our church at New Harmony, where we're consistently hitting 400. Okay, and it's just hard to keep the small feeling of community in a church like that. You have to really work at it, and so large churches try to accomplish that by hiring more staff and just kind of. It's kind of like it's very much like in the Old Testament when Moses and the Israelites first came out of the dead. Moses was in command of hundreds of thousands of people there, maybe more than 1 million by some estimates, and so they're just constantly bringing their problems to him. So I mean, he gets advised and he takes the advice to set up a structure of leaders to help you deal with all this. So. Basically, that's what you do as your not population, your attendance grows. You grow the structure of leaders who can help you keep not control, that's the wrong word, but keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on in the church, so you can hopefully maintain some community at that level. And I just said that in a really simplistic way.
Yeah.
But so platform, I'm not sure that I see the influence of mega churches continuing as it has. There will still be mega churches and large churches, and because of that, large worship ministries that make music and people listen to it and use those songs in their churches. But because of the controversy that has come out of a lot of large church networks late in the last 10 years, 15 years, and probably maybe, unfortunately, hopefully not, though, into the future, of sexual abuse, and which is what hit Hillsong. It hit the Southern Baptists too, but in a different way. At the seminary level in some places, a lot of cover up and things like that. But I think because of things like that, the mistrust that a lot of, like, as Americans we tend to have about institutions anyways, is going to grow. So there'll still be large churches with large worship ministries producing music, but I don't see there being. I see the machine that has built, kind of inadvertently been built around this whole thing, starting to come apart. So I don't know what that's going to mean necessarily for, like what will we be singing in churches in 10 years, 20 years? That's hard to say.
Yeah.
But all I can say is, and there's other external forces that apply, like whatever happens in the culture at large, in the nation at large, will affect what happens in our churches. All the talk of civil war and whether you take that seriously or not is another question for another podcast. But it's out there. People, the grumbling, the collapse of economy, the collapse of government. Those things happen. Have happened in history. They can happen again. They'll probably. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but if it's going to happen to us, we're closer today than we've ever been.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that to be, like, oh yeah. Of course we are. We're one day closer to it, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's pieces on the board that are moving us in a direction that could go that way.
Yeah.
But I'm not a prophet, so. I'm just reading the tea leaves at that point. That's not being prophetic. So those things affect what might happen. But all I can say though is, as things stand today, we have more music than we've ever had in our corpus of music for the church. If tomorrow all the songwriting ceased, we would never run out of songs.
Yeah.
We will have songs to sing for forever, literally. So I'm not worried too much on that front. But I do think that God's going to continue to, stir creativity, and until Jesus comes back, and whatever that looks like after he comes back. I think there'll still be songwriting in heaven. Okay, it'll be different, but. Because it talks. Even I think in the Revelation, even it talks about this is a new song, and they're singing it. So that's my opinion. But so I don't know. That's probably the question you've asked me that I have the least solid answer for.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to have a solid answer for.
It's hard.
What's going to happen.
But the thing about worship music is, as long as God's people are passionately pursuing Him, I believe that they will be writing songs to praise Him for it.
Yeah.
And those songs will take on the ethnic quality of whoever's writing it. The cultural, the ethnicity, the whatever. And it doesn't have to be nationwide. Like I write songs. Nobody outside of New Harmony Church ever sings them. and that's okay. I'm fine with that. If somebody watched our live stream and was like, oh, I like that song, and they try to find it on the radio, they're not going to find it. And if they contacted us, I would gladly give it to them. I'm not going to be. I don't care. You know, I'm not in this to like get copyrighted and I'm not even saying that the songs I write are that good, but if by chance one of them did catch on, I'm not in it for money or anything. I mean, I just want if you want to sing this song, then sing it well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's here for worship, not for copyright and royalty and all that stuff. So don't care about that.
Yeah.
So
Right on.
what else, my friend?
As we were talking, tech guy that you are,
Yeah.
I have been listening to actually a whole bunch of different podcasts, and Joe Rogan is one of my favorites because he has a way big variety of people that he has on, and so the rise of AI.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of? Because AI now is different than 3 years ago when we were starting to hear about it.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Do you?
Look, man, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't get too bent out of shape about those kinds of things because I have no control over them.
Yeah.
But what do I think is going to happen? I don't think it's going to be Skynet, okay, like Terminator
Yeah.
kind of thing. I just don't think that. I mean, now I'm not saying that bad things couldn't happen from it. But because here's the thing, man. Humanity has never created a technology that didn't get abused and misused somehow. We invented. I can think of things that like the cotton gin. Okay, I don't know why that one always pops up into my head. It's just something I remember from high school, from junior high, being taught about. It's an invention that made picking cotton easier, but what at the end of the day, even those things like that can be used to hurt people.
Yeah.
Okay, and or to take advantage of people. So Eli Whitney invents the cotton gin, and then a whole industry grows up around that to build cotton gins. So what happens? Well, child labor,
Yeah.
slave labor. I mean, different things. That it's a great invention, but think about the industry that grows up around it to make it happen, to implement it. The common argument that I keep hearing about electric vehicles and batteries is like, oh yeah, well, I mean the lithium is mined in Africa with children,
Yeah.
or the thing of blood diamonds. So things that are inherently amoral, a technology, a resource or whatever, can become immoral because of the way that we obtain it, use it. So my big concern about AI is just how are we going to use it?
Yeah.
And whether it becomes, autonomous and, I don't even like using these words because it crosses into a metaphysical thing that I just don't. I'm not prepared to talk about, for one thing, because I would need to study a little bit. But
Yeah.
An AI that becomes sentient, will it kill us? I don't know. I mean, only if it feels threatened, I suppose.
Yeah.
But so I don't know that kind of stuff. I like sci-fi, so I can go there in my imagination. I mean, I can go there, and I can go a lot of places in my imagination. But the clickbait stuff of like, oh, Elon Musk created an AI that started to correct itself and threatened to kill him, and so he shut it off. It's clickbait.
Yeah.
Okay. It's sensationalism that's trying to make money, and so I don't usually go read those things. But I was actually thinking about this on the way over here because of the podcast I was listening to.
Yeah.
They weren't talking about AI, but the thing that got talked about in this podcast had to do with medical stuff. uh, and I've used one of the things I said is no doctor, your personal physician has the pressure on him to know everything that there is to know medically, but he can't do that. You
Yeah.
know, he can't. He's either going to spend all of his time reading and learning, or he's going to spend all his time treating patients. And so and so you try to do both of those things, and you never do either one of them perfectly. In other words, so I can't it's like me. I can't know everything about everything. Um, Now, if you build an AI that can read everything and then turn around and diagnose you, I mean, I think that could be infinitely useful.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that doesn't. I don't think that. I haven't thought through the industry that would rise around that. Like, what would it do to actual doctors? I think there's still room for that. Okay, because an AI kind of looks at things dispassionately with no emotion and just says, "This is what's going on. This is how you treat it." Well, there's quality of life things to consider as well. So a human being can consider the quality of life things, where an AI, unless we figure out a way to make them emotional, which I don't think is a good idea.
Yeah.
But somebody will do it. But an AI can look at these things dispassionately and just diagnose and tell you exactly what needs. And they can bring in the entire corpus of medical knowledge to bear on something, all the new stuff, the cutting edge stuff, because it's a learning model. I mean, that's what all AI is. Apple uses the word machine learning, okay, to kind of take the stigma away that is associated from AI, but it's basically the same thing. So when you hear machine learning, just plug in AI. It's the same concept. So if these machines are constantly taking in the data from medical journals that are like ones that were submitted yesterday, it's already read them. You know, ones that so it's on top of all this, and it could potentially be that thing that has all the knowledge and could diagnose you very, very accurately. Okay, with everything taken into consideration, all the new stuff, all the bleeding edge stuff, and then you have a doctor who comes in and kind of brings in the human element of, okay, now what's our quality of life that we have to consider? Like we could do this treatment, but you may not like the end result of this treatment.
Yeah.
So I think those kinds of things, infinitely useful for us.
Yeah.
But we have to, like I said, we just have to consider. So if we go down this road, we have one use in mind for it that we think would be really good, but what is it going to cost us to get there? To build the machine and maintain it and support it and all the things that go around, the economy that rises up with it.
Yeah.
So
interesting. Man.
I could keep going, man. I'm good.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched on Star Wars or anything kind of fun. I mean, it's all been fun, but you know what I'm saying.
Have you heard about this new lady they hired at Disney for Star Wars?
I think so.
You have?
I don't know much about it, though.
So, I don't know her name, because I chose not to remember. But
already I can tell you don't like her.
So, I guess when they hired her on, they're doing this new Rey movie, right? For Star Wars. It's projected for 2026 or whatever it is. And they brought this lady on, and they're having a conference, I guess, with, fans and stuff like that. And there's a few writers up there, and then it's this new, I don't know what her specific position is, but overseer of writing or whatever, or something like that. And it's very, don't want to use the wrong word, but with the intent to over feminize the next row of stuff. And that's a Disney thing.
Okay.
Not just
let me jump in here.
Not just feminize, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's an agenda behind the Star Wars movie, and then that's kind of brought an uprising of just write a freaking good movie.
Yeah.
Don't worry about this other stuff. And so she was very, very open and very directed towards doing that, and she was very open about it in multiple press conferences that I had just seen clips of.
Yeah.
And so that worries me because I don't want to watch a Star Wars movie that is more propaganda than a Star Wars movie. And so that's what I'm worried about. But I didn't know if
Sure.
you had seen about it.
No, look, I'm probably going to disappoint you here. I watch movies purely for the entertainment value.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Now I gotta admit that some movies, the agenda is so loud and clear
Yeah.
that it's kind of hard to avoid it.
Yeah. It
Okay.
takes away from your entertainment of the movie.
So I'm like, oh, you just stuck this in here because you're trying to be PC and okay, whatever. A lot of times I can get over it, okay, because there's other things about the movie I may like or whatever. But like, okay, there's a lot of people, and I'm good friends with a few people in Colorado. I think I'm still good friends with them. That, man, they are hardcore Star Wars people, but they are also like, this whole Rey business is stupid.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, I just enjoy they were being all critical about the Force Awakens and the Last Jedi, or the Last Jedi Rise of Skywalker, and I'm thinking to myself, I just enjoyed the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, were there things that I thought, yeah, I'd done that different? Sure, okay, but entertainment value, I was fine with those movies. I don't care if the hero of the movie is a woman or a man.
Yeah.
As long as they're good people, and you know what I mean by that. I'm not into the anti-hero. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
I've heard this from you before.
I'm just not into it as much. Now, I make an exception on a couple of things. Like, I really enjoyed the movie Hancock. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Do I think our heroes should be like Hancock? No. Okay, Hancock is a jerk.
Yeah.
He ends up kind of redeeming himself and not being as much of a jerk at the end. So even in that, there's a redemption story that's at work. But I just don't get into the anti-hero because I think it's, I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like it's telling the wrong story. I think we like anti-heroes because they make them more relatable.
Yeah.
Okay. If I wanted to watch something like that, I'd just go watch a movie about my life, or I mean, I'm turning to movies for fantasy.
Yeah.
And storytelling, not a super concentrated redose of real life. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
Real life is hard enough. I don't need to leave a movie theater just super depressed because over that was so real. I mean, I mean, I just don't need that in my life. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I honestly don't know why people want that. I mean, there's a point of, like, I enjoy drama on TV, like series like 24. 24 is forever.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't mean that like in a stupid way. It's just like, this is so unreal. There's aspects of realism with it, but it's just unrealistic enough that I know it's fantasy.
Yeah.
I know it's not actually this way. So it's got to cross a line for me into fantasy that, okay, we're in a safe place here because this is not going to be how something actually comes, happens or whatever. I guess that's why I enjoy sci-fi so much, because it's all fantasy.
Yeah.
It's a complete suspension of belief that I enter into when I watch sci-fi or whatever. And sometimes you're like, well, kind of naive, is really this way, right?
Yeah.
But that's what it is for me. So that's what makes it entertaining for me, is the suspension of belief is entertaining. and I like superhero movies for that very reason. And so in that, the suspension of belief for me is important. So I don't want ultra realistic anti-heroes because it's like this is I mean it's just too much realism for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Plus, I feel like that people need hope. And I'm going to talk about this for just from a not from a Christian perspective, okay? Because obviously I'm there, right? But I think the reason that Superman is so popular and enduring is because of the hope that he represents. A hope for, and I don't know that people think about it at that level necessarily, but inside at a subconscious level, I think that heroes like Superman endure because it actually causes us to feel like somebody's going to save the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I know to be true. You and I know that'll be true.
Yeah.
I mean, there are very real Messiah themes going on with Superman, anyways. But that, so you take what was that one? I didn't watch it because it's just in that vein that I don't like. Birds of Prey.
Oh yeah.
That one. I don't appreciate those movies at all. I think villains should be villains, heroes should be heroes. And
Yeah.
let's keep those lanes pretty tidy. I'm okay for a redemption story. Okay.
Fair.
Like if you wanted to if the Joker wanted to become a good guy, let's make him a good guy. But he's got to be good.
Yeah.
He can't continue to be a criminal and be a hero.
Yeah.
So I'm all about that, but I don't like those lines to be muddied.
Okay.
So I know not everybody agrees with me on that, but
Yeah.
so yeah. So anyways, back to the Star Wars thing, the agendas and all that. As long as the entertainment value is there and it's a separation from reality, the agenda is ignorable for me. But sometimes it is very strong.
Yeah.
And kind of hard to ignore.
And I was like going back the added trilogy, the most recent trilogy they did.
Yeah.
Watched all three of those, and I wasn't very critical of them until after all three of them were out. And so I did enjoy them, especially in theaters. I watched all of them multiple times in theaters, and I thought they were great movies. And they still represent great movies. There are definitely things I would change. And I'm not the director of Star Wars, so I can't do that. But I think, they've got a bunch of different projects coming out.
Have you ever watched Rogue One?
Yes.
Okay,
but
then followed up and watched A New Hope right away after that?
Not exactly right away.
Okay, you should, because then you'll see all the holes that get created by...
Yeah.
Because when George Lucas made the original Star Wars, there's no way he envisioned that, 50 years later,
Yeah.
this is still a thing, and we're making all sorts of expanded universe
Yeah.
things, and Disney now owns it, and all. I mean, there's no way he was thinking. He was just hoping that this would come out in the black and make a little money.
Yeah.
Now he obviously had a story that he wanted to tell because he's been very clear that he had all three of those first movies in his mind when he made the original one, but he had no idea it's going to work.
Yeah.
He for sure was not thinking about Attack of the Clones and not Attack of the Clones, excuse me, Clone Wars,
Yeah.
like the animated series,
Yeah.
which I've never seen. I can't get. Okay, another thing, I just can't get into animated Star Wars. I'll go read the synopses if it'll catch me, because like the Ahsoka series that came out on Disney Plus, that is heavily tied to Rebels. Okay,
Yeah.
I've never seen Rebels. I'm not going to go watch Rebels, so I go to Wikipedia and I just read the plot of them, and that's good enough for me. It fills in the plot holes that or not the plot holes, but the plot assumptions that are made by Ahsoka in that series, and I'm fine. But animated Star Wars, I tried. I really gave it a good try.
Yeah.
but I just could not get into it.
So when I was a kid, when DVDs were still a thing, I had one Star Wars Clone Wars disc, DVD, but it wasn't the 3D one. It was the 2D they did before that they pitched, and it was like a season long, and there was like too many movies along with that one season they did, and it's awesome. Like it's Star Wars action the whole time. There's like a total of 30 words spoken in the movie, and it's just constant animated action, and it's good. And I like that's the only animated Star Wars I could really take.
Yeah.
And then I tried the 3D thing, and I've heard good things about it, but I can't grab onto it.
Yeah.
But apparently recently, I guess some fans got together or whatever, and they made Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting back and forth, they made a Clone Wars animated that scene, but it's Clone Wars animated 3D, and everybody's going berserk about it, but I haven't watched it. But I would really love to see a Darth Vader movie or series at least.
I'm with you on that.
Because there's so much like even in Obi-Wan, there's so much stuff that you could do with him. There's
people dog the Obi-Wan series a little bit.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I did too.
I liked it a lot. But
it started slow, but the anticipation of, that happening, because nobody knew that happened.
Yeah.
Then you figure out that it happened. But I think
that created a hole in their New Hope movie too.
Yeah.
Because in the New Hope, she sends this message to to Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And she speaks as if she's never met him.
Yeah.
That's not true. She met him when she was 10. Now,
Yeah.
according to canon. So, yeah. At least Disney's not going to do what George Lucas did and go back and like insert corrections into the. Just leave him alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was fine with the old Anakin showing up at the end of Return of the Jedi
Yeah.
instead of showing, Christian Haydenson or whatever. I mean, I'm not against that, what they did, but I thought it was fine the other way too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, definitely. That's like the one thing I ask for is a Darth Vader movie or series. Give me something, because
didn't Marvel Comics make a comic book series about Vader?
They did, and I haven't read it, but I've seen a few ones where they like kind of go over one comic, and it's like him versus 1,000 rebel soldiers. I'm like, that's so stinking cool, and like there's a bunch of stuff like that they could do. But
have you watched any of the What If stuff?
No, I've heard it's good though.
I've watched a few of them, and of course, right now they're dealing just strictly with Marvel characters.
Yeah.
But it's Disney. I'd like to see them do some Star Wars. What If.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Like, what if Luke joined the dark side?
Oh yeah.
And how all that would have unfolded?
Yeah, and their game side of things, Star Wars game side, they've got this one series they're working on. They're doing a trilogy, and it's own standalone stuff. Mm-hmm. So other Jedi you don't even hear of in the actual Star Wars story. And he's exploring all this other stuff as a new Jedi, and he like runs into Darth Vader, every once in a while, but he's like learning that you can tap into the dark side and then like come back and still be okay.
Yeah.
And so like there's a whole bunch of stuff you can go down. It's about a whole bunch of different avenues you can go down.
See, that's the mythology around Mace Windu.
Yeah.
That's why his saber was purple.
Yeah.
It's because he learned to balance both of those aspects of the Force.
And I would love to see a Mace Windu series too.
Samuel L. Jackson's getting a little old.
Yeah,
to be playing, unless they find a replacement.
Fair.
I don't know. People come up with these fan theories all the time, and I don't spend a lot of time reading them. But every now and then the algorithm on YouTube will bring one up, so I'll just kind of watch it for a minute
Yeah.
and like, I never thought of that. Like the idea that Mace Windu did not die.
Yeah, he's still alive.
He used the Force to break his fall and all this stuff, and like, I mean, because that's within the realm of Star Wars
Oh, yeah.
possibility.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, there's a. You don't get into this one as much. I grew up watching Star Trek,
Yeah.
and I actually watched Star Trek. No, I watched Star Wars first, but Trek came along, and I got more into that than Star Wars for a while. And you want to talk about agenda, okay? Paramount has been making all these new Star Trek shows, and they almost lost me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's one series that is actually coming to an end that I think I'll finish.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Discovery. And, but about, I don't know if it was the third season or what. I think it was the third season. The agenda came on super strong. Super strong.
Yeah.
And it almost made me like quit watching. But there was enough still there that kept me interested,
Yeah.
At this point, I probably will finish it, watch the last season of it, just because I don't know. To me, it'll be like the last season of Lost. Like it's probably going to be a train wreck, but I like finishing things. Which Lost is another show I really love.
Yeah.
But but Star Trek, at least in that one series, went super agenda driven, and it almost made me quit.
Yeah.
Now they got another series that I've really enjoyed called Strange New Worlds, and that's actually it's kind of goes back to the old format of it's just this episodic. The episode, I mean, there's connection between the episodes, but they're not all just to be continued storylines.
Yeah.
They're independent stories, and they have not been in 2 seasons. They have not had like a super big agenda that's been driven down people's throats. Now that may change, but so far so good. And and if it's bothering me, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Okay, because like I said, I try not to. I try to take things at a pure entertainment level.
Yeah.
But yeah, Star Wars though, there's a lot of room for growth in that. I think, but I don't think Disney's going to do it well.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared.
I'm a little. They've made some good stuff. Like I thought when they started making The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah.
They were going to be. They had a good trajectory going for like, okay, this is going to be good. But then the Book of Boba Fett came out, and I was like, this isn't that great.
Yeah.
Again, a thing that I finished because I like finishing things, but I won't go back and rewatch the Book of Boba Fett probably ever. I might do that for the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
If I'm got the flu or something and sick, just need something to do, to watch or whatever. But they said there's going to be a second season of Kenobi, which I don't want that to happen.
You don't?
No.
I don't. Yeah, I can see that because I feel like that's all they needed to fill in.
Yeah.
Kind of fill in the story.
They did a great job, like just giving us a little bit of a storyline there in the middle and ended it well. Now let's just let that be the thing that takes us.
But at the end of the Kenobi series, when, oh my word, Qui-Gon.
Oh, Force Ghosts, yeah.
I kind of want to see like more of an interaction between that, and maybe like you see his development into more of like a Jedi Master type figure.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be like the only way I'd want to watch another one.
I think I agree with you, but I think they should have probably included that in this, like let that happen at the beginning or maybe in the second or third episode.
Yeah.
And then he could have been a guiding influence through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just dropping him at the end and saying, "Oh, So I don't know, but it played along though. It played well that they didn't do that
Yeah.
because you saw Kenobi purposefully not using the Force so that he wouldn't draw attention to himself, which made him rusty. Okay, but he had adapted to a life of not using the Force, so of course he wasn't having those conversations.
Yeah.
You know. But when he came back, man, it wasn't long, and then Qui-Gon shows up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I wasn't mad at that. I need to watch the Ahsoka series.
you haven't watched that yet,
I haven't watched it yet.
bro? It's really good. Especially, I showed you that little clip of when she had a vision of Anakin.
Yeah.
That was really well done.
Yeah.
But they don't have the same music track I showed you,
Oh.
which was a good music track for it. But
Yeah. Yeah, I need to watch that.
one last
and-
Star Wars thing.
Okay.
Have you ever seen the guy on YouTube who redid the Vader Kenobi fight from A New Hope? Bro,
You showed me that.
I showed you that?
You showed me that.
Okay. That
I go back and rewatch it sometimes.
this is one thing that I think that is fan created that Disney should take. You'll never hear me say this again probably, but that was so well done, and I think I would love to see them take that and just kind of give it the treatment, you know, to kind of make it more professional because it's really good.
It is really good.
Anyways, but like make it film quality, professional, and incorporate that into A New Hope. I would. That would be the one thing that they could do for my taste and my what I would like to see happen. And I would say, okay, Disney, you did something really good here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Need more lightsaber fighting.
yeah,
We don't get enough of it. It's been 2 hours and some change.
well, I'm sure you'll edit. So, but I'm sure you'll only get about 10 minutes cut out. So it's going to be a long one.
Yeah.
So.
But I've really enjoyed having you on. Great conversation, great stuff. And we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, man, we'll do a part 2.
Awesome. Well, I think we're going to call it then.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you having you on,
My pleasure.
and we'll do it again sometime.